It is the 25th of February. I'm Raf.
And I'm Travis, and this is Show and Tell,
where every week we bring one headline that we found interesting and we talk about it.
But neither of us knows the headline the other is going to talk about, only have 4 minutes each to explain it. And this week we would also like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to elders both past, present and future.
So this week there have been lots of headlines about one topic, and I think you know what it is, Travis. So
I think we all know what it is.
Yes, no need to guess this week. We all know that tensions and conflict are increasing between Russia and Ukraine, as well as rhetoric between NATO, the Western allies, and Russia evolving around this conflict. So from the 22nd of February, just a few days ago, the conflict did increase in its severity. Russian forces began moving into separatist, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, separatist-controlled regions of Ukraine. And as of the 24th of February, it seems there is a full invasion underway of Ukraine by Russia. So 137 people have reportedly died from the conflict already, and the UN have reported 100,000 people have already fled their homes. So it's escalating quickly. People are nervous that this is resembling the likes of a World War type crisis in terms of how Western allies might respond. The Ukrainian government has been pleading for the international community's support in the form of sanctions against Russia, and that is something that Australia has been doing over the last few days. Scott Morrison has aligned the Australian government with the United States in terms of our stance on the conflict. So the US has said, just to recap in case people don't know, that Russia is seeming to encircle and threaten the Ukrainian capital Kiev, and in the early hours of Thursday morning, explosions were heard. So Russian troops have entered the country from the north, east and the south, and it seems they're targeting the capital Kiev. And if you guys remember Chernobyl, it seems Russian forces have reportedly captured the nuclear power plant as well. The Australian government is working with NATO, and they are sending non-lethal military equipment and medical supplies to Ukraine in appearance of their support, and they're also continuing to roll out a wave of sanctions against Russia, and those sanctions have been announced to be a coordinated action to demonstrate that allies like Australia and the US are trying to forcefully stop and shut out Russia from unlawful actions in Ukraine. So those sanctions include against oligarchs whose economic standing is important to Moscow, as well as key Belarusian entities, as well as individuals who seem to be complicit in the aggression. But what's interesting in the last few days is Scott Morrison condemning China for not participating in these sanctions and instead lifting restrictions on wheat exports to Russia. And so the South China Morning Post did report that this release of sanctions or release of restrictions on wheat had nothing to do with the current conflict, and that it was about Vladimir Putin's visit to Beijing in the beginning of February and the discussions that were had then. But Scott Morrison explicitly said it was unacceptable for China and the Chinese government to be easing trade restrictions on Russia while the rest of the world crack down on Russia in order to try and intimidate and shut them out from continuing aggression. So this is all just adding to the rhetoric of what's been happening around the conflict. It's a lot. I'm sorry for talking straight at you for a few minutes. I'm not even sure I turned on the timer. But that's the headline, and I'm excited to look to regional Australia because I feel a bit drowned out by all of the Russian news. So
no, it's really important to talk about.
Yes, it is.
So we'll make an exception this week by having no timer, but
Yes.
only this week. From now on.
Oh no.
So this week I would like to talk about Lingiari.
What is Lingiari?
Would you like to hazard a guess? And I'll accept two answers.
Two answers.
Two answers.
A type of pasta.
No, that was not one of the answers.
Oh.
I would have accepted the electorate in the Northern Territory or Vincent Lingiari, who was the Aboriginal rights activist that the electorate was named after.
Okay, so it's not pasta.
No, pasta was not in those two answers, unfortunately. Yep, if you answered at home, Northern Territory federal electorate, you're on the money.
Ding ding.
And also, by the way, this is irrelevant completely, but it covers 99.99% of the Northern Territory.
That's a very big electorate.
It is a very big
And
electorate.
What's the point?
It's like
1%.
Solomon, which is like Darwin, pretty much.
Okay.
Which is, yeah.
Geography.
There's
with
only
Travis
two.
Radford.
Anyway, but I would like to travel back in time first to 1997. What happened in 1997? Steve Jobs returned to Apple. Princess Diana died.
Oh,
And Patrick Hill had a vision.
what was the vision, Travis?
Who's Patrick Hill? Don't completely know myself, to be honest. Not an important part of the story. But he had a vision apparently to upgrade the existing roads in the Northern Territory and create something called the Outback Way.
The Outback Way.
Yes. That's how the Outback Highway Council told it, at least. And then the following year, they say in 1998, the council is formed. And essentially, the Outback Way is this nearly 3,000 kilometre road that cuts straight across the Northern Territory. It goes into Queensland and Western Australia on both sides. The road already exists. They've been proposing upgrades since 1997, 1998 to seal this road and to make it cut down freight times and make it more hospitable for tourists coming in. And then finally, in 2013, an election year, the coalition pledged $42 million.
Wow.
Yeah. And then in 2016, an election year, they listened again and pledged another $100 million. And then in 2022, an election year, sensing a pattern.
No.
No. But basically, the coalition, they have never held Lingiari, the electorate in the Northern Territory, that this road cuts straight through. If this was an election strategy, I'm not implying anything, but if it was, it hasn't quite worked for them because the same person has held this electorate since it was created in 2001. In just last month, the current government announced another $42 million for this road, the Outback Way. And then Labor on the same day announced $200 million for regional roads in the Northern Territory. And then the very next day after that, Barnaby Joyce came out and pledged $678 million.
Barnaby!
And you might be asking, well...
Why?
Yep.
Why Barnaby?
But this time, things are slightly different to what they've been all those years before because the popular Labor MP who held Lingiari for about 2 decades is retiring from politics at this upcoming election.
So there is a power vacuum in
Yeah,
play.
there's an opportunity. It's being shaped up as a tougher battle that could go either way. So, when you add a sprinkle of outgoing popular MP and a dash of yet to be fully resolved decades-long hot topic and then a pinch of an upcoming federal election and...
a lot of money too.
Yeah, a lot of money too, and yeah, we are.
I like that headline.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see how it plays out over the next few months.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch.
It will be. And that is show and tell for this week.
Yeah.
Shall we get the scrapbook?
Let's do it. So we ran out of text, so we wrote it in our own blood this week.
It's actually my lipstick blood's a bit dramatic. But here we have it.
Yeah. Here we are.
Show and tell, 25th of February. We will see you next week. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.